Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following. Indiana University's Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, presenting Security Matters with tips for improving online security in 3 minutes or less. Main Source Bank, headquartered in Greensburg, Indiana, offering products and services to fit every stage of life. More information at mainsourcebank.com. Main Source, life needs a great bank. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Smithville Communications, serving Southern Indiana with high-speed fiber gigabit internet. Smithville Fiber Gigabit Technology. Tap the power.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk, the Indiana Toll Road has a new operator, but did the company pay too much? Ahead, who's in charge and their plan for repairing deteriorating roads and rest stops. Plus, Indiana could be the first state to legalize baby boxes for mothers to anonymously drop off their unwanted newborns.
We don't want a woman to feel obligated to abandon her child, but we don't want to sit back and let these children be found in woods and creeks and trash cans.
But the bill is facing opposition from a surprising source. Ahead, why national child welfare organizations say they can't get behind the idea. A soldier is preparing to come home, but he can't join his wife and family unless he leaves his dog behind. He says the pit bull helps him as he struggles with PTSD, but the animals are forbidden under the town's vicious dog ordinance. Ahead, how the fight is dividing the small Indiana community. Those stories and the latest headlines from across the state right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Sarah Whitmire in for Joe Wren. An Australian company is set to take over management of the Indiana Toll Road that runs through the northern part of the state and into Illinois. This comes after another Australian-based company that originally held the lease went bankrupt. Barbara Harrington brought us the story in September, and she's here now to give us an update on the latest developments. Barbara, how much is this Australian company paying for the toll road lease?
Well, Sarah, they're paying $5.7 billion. It's IFM Investors that's taking this over, and the amount that they're paying is actually quite a bit more than the original toll road lease.
In 2006, then Republican Governor Mitch Daniels leased the Indiana Toll Road for $3.8 billion. The state used that money for construction projects, including US 31 and I-69. But the company that took on the lease fell into financial troubles, and the toll road fell into disrepair.
We've learned during this process that the service plazas along the toll road, all of them are really in deplorable condition.
Democratic South Bend Representative David Nitzkotz says he wants to make sure that doesn't happen again under the new lease agreement.
Maybe our options are going to be limited because of the way this transaction is going to take place, basically paying off the debt. But, you know, it all comes down to people just continually asking the questions, and let's make this the investment in northern Indiana that is good for the entire state of Indiana.
In a statement, IFM Investors says the company is committed to maintaining the road to a high standard that provides maximum availability and usability for customers. The Indiana Finance Authority, which oversees the highway lease, says its experts reviewed IFM's bid and are confident they can meet their legal obligations to maintain the road.
And Sarah, that means that under those obligations that this new company will take on, they have to perform routine maintenance and make upgrades to the toll road that were originally outlined in this lease agreement.
Now, IFM Investors is actually owned by a group of non-profit funds that contribute into it, I assume. So were there other people who also bid on this road?
There were quite a few, and one that a lot of people had their eyes on. It wasn't a traditional company. It was two counties, Lake and LaPorte County. They're both in northern Indiana, along the toll road, and they were in the process of forming a not-for-profit company to bid on this lease. Now, they didn't get their final bid in yet, but they're still going to submit one in case that this IFM deal does not go through. Okay. They say they could make millions off of it.
Wow. Okay, so when is IFM supposed to take over operation of the toll road then?
Well, this whole process could take several months, but the Indiana Finance Authority has final say over whatever operator may take over. The current operator hoped to be done with its bankruptcy proceedings in August.
Okay, and it's interesting you said that they actually paid more than the other toll road companies. So how are they going to avoid being in the same situation?
I think that's a question a lot of people have, but the Indiana Finance Authority has looked at this proposal, and so far they've said, we think that they have the financial stability to do this. They have to do it without increasing tolls, which was something that was stipulated in that original agreement.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Barbara, for your reporting. Indiana lawmakers are considering installing boxes at hospitals, fire, and police stations where mothers can anonymously drop off their unwanted newborns. Advocates say the boxes are meant to be a last resort option that will save babies' lives. But as Gretchen Frazee reports, the proposal has some unlikely opposition, with national child welfare organizations calling it too risky and expensive.
Once the door is opened, an immediate 911 call will go out that the door has been opened up on a safe haven box. Second trip will happen when the woman places her child on the inside of the box.
At the Woodburn Fire Station, where she works just outside of Fort Wayne, Monica Kelsey shows off a prototype, a skeleton, if you will, of what the baby boxes will look like.
It is going to be insulated. It's going to be lined with heating and cooling and climate controlled.
It's about the size of an incubator and will be installed in the walls of buildings, kind of like the boxes at the bank drive-thru that you put your money in to give the teller. Kelsey paid someone to design the box after she saw something similar during a trip to South Africa. The image stayed with her because of her own birth story.
I was adopted at birth, and my biological mother was a 17-year-old woman who was brutally attacked and raped and left along the side of the road. This was back in 1972 when abortion was illegal in our country. And at the advice of her mother, my biological grandmother paid to have me aborted at a back alley abortion clinic because of the shame that the family was going to feel. And my birth mother changed her mind at the last minute. Her mother hid her from the outside world the remainder of the pregnancy, and then she abandoned me 2 hours after I was born.
She was left with the nurses at a hospital in a small town in Ohio. Kelsey often imagines a scenario where her mother had aborted her or left her in an unsafe location for fear of being recognized, and she doesn't want that happening to anyone else.
We don't want these women to choose these boxes. We want them to choose to place their child in the arms of a firefighter or a police officer or a hospital. But we understand also that some girls will refuse to do this. We want this option available for these girls who choose not to do the face-to-face interaction.
Kelsey says the box is meant to be an extension of Indiana's existing safe haven law that allows women to give up their infants by physically handing over their child to someone at a hospital, police, or fire station without fear of criminal charges. So Kelsey lobbied her state representative Casey Cox to author a bill legalizing the boxes.
It's a voluntary idea, but what we would be doing is basically developing standards and protocols for such modern, safe devices that trigger 911 upon entry.
The boxes are receiving a lot of criticism, though, from national child welfare advocacy organizations who say they could encourage mothers to abandon their babies. Timothy Jacquard is the New York EMT who first advocated for the safe haven laws.
If the box is left partially open or even fully open, because we're dealing with women that are in very crisis situations and distraught, that the box could not close all the way. The temperature in those boxes would be dropped to whatever it is outside. So if you have 2 degrees or below zero, within 2 minutes, that child would freeze.
Jacquard also worries hospitals would be held liable if a baby dies in the box, either from an equipment malfunction or because the infant wasn't healthy to begin with. But Representative Cox says that won't be an issue as long as facilities are operating within compliance standards that the State Department of Health will be charged with drafting. All those specifics still have to be worked out. Jacquard says that will take time and money that would be better spent raising awareness of existing safe haven laws. All 50 states have some kind of safe haven law, but most states, including Indiana, spend little or no money to promote it.
Are they going to use these boxes? No, I really don't think they're going to be used, and then they're going to be forgotten.
Kelsey knows it will cost money to install the boxes at fire stations like this one, although she hasn't been able to nail down a figure on exactly how much. Nonprofit groups have agreed to help carry the financial burden, but Kelsey says she's not worried about the cost because you can't put a price tag on a child's life.
Every life has value. Every life has purpose.
A handful of hospitals in other states, including Arizona, use similar devices called baby drawers. Health officials there say they haven't had any problems with them, but they're used infrequently. Indiana lawmakers will decide whether to approve the baby boxes here in the next few weeks. Now over for headlines, we go to Alex Dierkman, who has the latest on this week's top stories.
Thank you, Sarah. We're expecting more information in the coming days about what caused a charter bus to crash on I-65 near Henryville on Thursday. The bus, which was carrying the Indiana Tech bowling team, was bound for a competition in Tennessee. 21 people were injured, including players and coaches. Only 2 remain in the hospital. The costs associated with administering the I-STEP through 2017 could top $38 million. Indiana's Department of Administration selected vendors this week to administer parts of the standardized test. The estimated costs concern some state board members who say they're worried components will be included in the test that aren't mandated by law, which could prevent students and taxpayers from getting the best bang for their buck. Test vendors submitted proposals last year, and the DOA scored each one on a variety of factors, primarily quality and cost effectiveness. Although vendors have been selected, their contracts will not be awarded until any appeals have been addressed. The due date to submit an appeal is March 18th. The state licensing board is filing an official complaint against the VA hospital employee who sent emails mocking veteran suicides. Robin Paul, who is a social worker at Rowdebush Veterans Affairs Hospital, has been placed on leave. In emails obtained by the Indianapolis Star, the social worker depicts an elf who complains of not having enough Xanax and another hanging from a strand of Christmas lights. The Rowdebush Medical Center director said in a statement that the emails do not reflect the hospital's views towards patients, and they take great pride in the quality of care and empathetic outreach they provide to veterans. The American Red Cross is in urgent need of blood donations. Officials say recent harsh weather forced the cancellation of more than 200 blood drives nationally. The result was an estimated 2,300 uncollected blood donations in the River Valley region, which covers central Kentucky, southern Indiana, and southeastern Illinois. A bill that would allow terminally ill patients to try experimental drugs is on its way to the full Senate after a committee unanimously approved it this week. The so-called Right to Try bill allows people with fatal conditions to try medications that have passed the first phase of FDA approval, but still require more testing before they're publicly available. The committee made a slight change to the bill before passing it Wednesday. It now provides liability protection to all healthcare providers in connection with the experimental drug, not just doctors, pharmacists, and hospitals. That same Senate committee is considering a bill that would make it easier for midwives to operate legally in Indiana. Legislation in 2013 established the framework for legalizing midwifery, but the law requires midwives to have written collaborative agreements with physicians. Bloomington midwife Helen Ayers says that's been a major setback.
We have not had a single doctor, and I'm talking about a dozen physicians who already are informally consulting with us and making themselves available to our home birth moms. Not a single one of them is free to sign a written collaborative agreement.
The bill the Senate is considering removes the collaborative agreement. Instead, it requires midwife clients to see a doctor at least twice during the pregnancy or sign a form indicating they refuse to do so. Opponents of the change say they fear it will increase infant mortality. The number of HIV cases in southeastern Indiana continues to climb. State health officials confirm 44 cases and say there's one additional preliminary positive case. That's up from 27 just a week ago. Officials say the outbreak likely began in Scott County, but rather than being sexually transmitted, it's primarily being spread through needles used to inject the prescription opioid drug Opana. The U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals is being asked to reconsider a decision which ruled in favor of the Obama administration's contraception requirement over Notre Dame. Notre Dame is arguing it should not be required to provide its employees with birth control because that goes against its religious beliefs. An appeals court denied that argument last year, but a few months later, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of Hobby Lobby, exempting closely held corporations from that portion of the law.
Some of the reasoning in Hobby Lobby according to Notre Dame, suggested that courts should defer to the religious understandings of the religious objector and should not second guess those understandings. And it's on that basis that Notre Dame was saying to the Supreme Court, have the Seventh Circuit take another look at this so that they are in fact not second guessing our religious judgment in an inappropriate fashion.
The U.S. Supreme Court threw out the appeals court decision Monday that denied the university's religious objections. The head of the state Republican Party isn't elaborating, but called his decision to step down a very hard one to make. Tim Berry announced his departure Thursday. He's been the GOP chairman since 2013. Before that, he served as the state auditor and state treasurer. Governor Mike Pence has tapped Jeff Cardwell as Berry's replacement, and Sarah Cardwell serves on the governor's cabinet as executive director of the Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives.
All right, thank you, Alex. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. A state representative is apologizing for sexting the same woman who was at the center of the Anthony Weiner sexting scandal in 2013. As more details emerge, we ask whether this points to the end of Justin Moed's political career. A veteran wants to come home, but the town he plans to live in won't let his pit bull come too. The struggle between helping a veteran with PTSD and keeping a community safe from potentially vicious dogs. Those stories and more next on Indiana Newsdesk.
The fact that PBS is the most trusted media outlet in the country means a great deal to me. We live now in the most multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic America ever. There are a lot of voices in this country that need to be heard. And I think that my job is to help Americans re-examine the assumptions that they hold, to expand their inventory of ideas, and hopefully to introduce Americans to each other. And we take that challenge seriously every day.
$10,000.
15? 15, you think?
20, 21,000?
600.
20. 18 fine.
24.
It's at least 40.
Look at it.
4,500,000.
650.
20.
650.
This textile would be worth about $500,000.
$500,000?
No way.
I knew it's just a blanket.
Laying on the back of a chair. Well, sir, you have a national treasure.
Wow.
A national treasure. Congratulations.
I can't believe this.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. The state representative caught up in a sexting scandal with Sydney Leathers could continue as a lawmaker. But House Speaker Brian Bosma says that will be a decision for Representative Justin Moed and his constituents. Moed issued an apology this week after Leathers of Evansville, who was one of the women involved in the sexting scandal with former New York Congressman Anthony Weiner, revealed Moed's identity. In a statement, he said, "I'm truly sorry I have hurt the ones I love most with my poor judgment. I'm committed to rebuilding trust with my family and my community." Moed is not married, but his biography on the Indiana House Democrats website says he is engaged.
I think if it were people in a relationship with each other and they were not high status and they were not a celebrity, most of us would probably say, okay, these are people in a couple who are sharing messages. We might warn against it because of the potential risks. But can understand it in a different light. I think the context of people who are very high profile doing it and the context of people in relationships doing it, it raises more questions for Americans given how we conceptualize sexuality in this country.
Moed and Leathers never met or spoke on the phone. She told the New York Post they only communicated through text. On Leathers' Twitter profile, she describes herself as a political scandal expert. Former Congressman Weiner was considered a frontrunner for New York City mayor when it was exposed he was involved with Leathers. Moed is serving his second term in the House. He was not present Thursday when the House convened, but Speaker Brian Bosma addressed the issue, calling it an unfortunate personal circumstance. He said it'll be up to Moed to determine if his personal conduct is making him ineffective and then responding accordingly. An Army veteran wants to move to Indiana once his military contract is over. The problem is one member of his family isn't welcome. Wayne Tibbett has an emotional service animal named Zorro, but Zorro is a pit bull, and the communities Tibbett wants to move to prohibit owning that breed of dog. As Barbara Harrington reports, the family's fight to come home is dividing the community.
Well, this is my oldest daughter, Tara, her husband, Wayne.
Elaine Stone is counting down the days until her daughter's family comes home to the Hoosier State.
I haven't been around my daughter for over 4 years, and because they've been stationed in New York and Texas, and I just can't wait for my whole family to be together again.
Her son-in-law, Wayne Tibbett, is stationed in New York, and his military contract ends in May. That's when he plans to move his family back to Benton County, to the small town of Fowler or Oxford. But both communities have ordinances that prohibit owning vicious dogs, specifically pit bulls. That's a problem for Tibbett because he has post-traumatic stress disorder, and his pit bull Zorro has become much more than a man's best friend.
When Wayne gets upset or nervous or anxious, like he goes in big crowds or a lot of people or a lot of confusion, his anxiety kicks up. And, he'll go home and just be with the dog, and the dog helps him out so much.
Zorro is considered an emotional support animal, which is different from a service animal.
A trained service animal recognizes that and then responds and, serves to, stop the individual from repetitive or harmful, behaviors, or gets them away from that particular environment by nuzzling the individual or, whatever the animal has been trained to do. Whereas an emotional support animal, it is the actual presence of the animal that provides some type of benefit for the person with the disability.
That distinction is important because while emotional support animals aren't protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act, they are under the Fair Housing Act.
A city or town may need to modify a housing ordinance that limits, the breed of dogs that can reside in that town or that people can have in the town under the Fair Housing Act. And what gets confusing is that the town would only be required to modify it as it relates to allowing the individual to have the animal in their home. The town wouldn't have to allow the individual to then take the animal out into public.
Several of Indiana's largest cities have moved away from breed-specific legislation. That includes Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, and Bloomington. The city of South Bend just changed its ordinance last year, shifting the language from being breed-specific to behavior-specific.
Any dog can be aggressive if it's unaltered, if it's untrained, under-socialized, unsupervised. And so really good law should be written, good animal care and control law should be written to address those issues.
South Bend Councilwoman Valerie Shea ran on a platform to update the city's antiquated animal control laws. She says since the new ordinance went into effect, there haven't been any major issues. And the animal shelter's euthanasia rate dropped 16% over the past 2 years.
A lot of these wonderful dogs that happen to be pit bull mixes are now getting a chance to be a loving family companion, and that's what means the most to me.
Back in Oxford, Elaine Stone is waiting on paperwork from her son-in-law's doctor so she can go before the town council and ask them to allow Zorro in town. She just wants her family to come home, pit bull and all.
They are my love and they are my life. And I want them home more than anything. And for these towns to deny them to come back because of this sweet dog who's protected is just makes me sick.
And town officials in Oxford and Fowler refused to comment for the story. Elaine Stone says her son-in-law is overwhelmed by the controversy the situation is creating. And another veteran and a former pilot got one last chance to fly a plane this week, 3 decades after stepping away from the cockpit.
It gave me a wonderful feeling. I always want to get off the ground. See what it looks like looking down instead of looking up.
90-year-old Gary native Nick Cusack has been dreaming of this moment. He wanted to get back behind the controls one more time. He enlisted in the Navy immediately after graduating high school. In 1942, he became a pilot in the Marines, and after 4 years of service, went to Purdue University to get his degree in aviation aeronautics engineering. Cusack says he was only 12 years old when he decided flying planes was what he wanted to do.
I did what I wanted to do. I had never thought about not knowing what to do. You know, kids nowadays, are, you know, they want to go from one thing to another, and instead of seeking something for themselves, I was lucky because I knew what I wanted to do.
For 30 years, Cusack was a commercial airline pilot for United Airlines. He retired in 1982. The assisted living community in Bedford, where Cusack lives, helped organize the flight through its Live a Dream program. And Alex, it's so neat to see something like this happen for him when he's saying this is a dream that he was really hoping that he would get to fulfill.
It's such a cool program. And the other thing that I want to mention is how neat it is that at such a young age, he knew exactly what he wanted to do. I think that's so not common, and it's so amazing that all through all these years, now he's 90 years old and he's still flying.
Yeah, that's what he was saying since he was 12. It's really remarkable. And you know, that had to have been, it was postponed because of weather, but not a problem this weekend.
Not a problem. It's going to be gorgeous.
Finally, some spring temperatures.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Alex. That is the end of our program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by the following: Indiana University's Center for Applied Cybersecurity Research, presenting Security Matters with tips for improving online security in 3 minutes or less. Main Source Bank, headquartered in Greensburg, Indiana, offering products and services to fit every stage of life. More information at mainsourcebank.com. Main Source, life needs a great bank. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Smithville Communications, serving Southern Indiana with high-speed fiber gigabit internet. Smithville Fiber Gigabit Technology. Tap the power.
And by WTIU members. Thank you.